Hello, Yuri. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Hi, Yuri. Hi, Kayo.
Thank you for
Hi,
joining
Kaya.
us.
Hi, Mike.
So, are you an iOS developer?
I am. Yeah, I am. I've been developing for iOS specifically for almost 5 years.
5 years. And before that, you were also a developer?
Yeah, kind of. I was doing some freelance development in college. So I was doing mainly web development for about 2 or 3 years. Um, but ever since then, iOS primarily.
Awesome.
Awesome.
How can we help you?
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions. One kind of related to like learning paths and general learning around architecture in iOS. So originally I had a question around, how do I build an intuition or more of an intuition around developing architecture and system design? And watching more of your videos, that answer was answered more. And then I kind of had the idea like, well, I do want to practice and I want to learn, how to do things well. Um, but at some point, I don't know what I don't know. And I want to learn how to identify a good learning path so that my skills can become more well-rounded and not business specific. What I'm experiencing now is that a lot of my knowledge is business specific into achieving the goals that a client or a business has, and that's fair. But I also don't want to pigeonhole my knowledge there.
Hmm.
Okay.
Awesome. So, yeah, if you only learn what you learn at the job, you're limited to whatever problems you are exposed to, right?
Yeah.
And we all face the same issues, and especially as you're becoming more and more experienced as a developer, it's hard to find material matching your level, right? In the beginning, you have a bunch of courses for junior developers, for total beginners, boot camps. But the more you grow as a developer, the harder it is to find advanced material, right?
Yeah.
Because most content is tailored to beginners, junior developers. And in my experience, the best way to learn, to find out the things you don't know, is to learn from experienced developers that have been doing it for a long, long time, longer than you. So you can learn from their mistakes and from their success as
Yeah.
well. Learn from experienced developers that can show you the way. Because
Because
I've been in your position. Sorry, Mike.
yeah, I mean, there is no other way to find out what you don't know. Like, you're going to have to follow someone that knows more than you, right? And you're going to be inspired or whatever, like you would want them to teach you. That's how you find mentors. Like, that's the whole mentorship um, idea, right? And maybe they don't, like, you need to go out there and study them, like study the high level developers in the industry, for example. you know it's exactly what we did, by the way, uh years ago. So
Yeah, I felt stuck at some point in my career,
yeah.
and I didn't know what I needed to do precisely, right? But by reaching out to more experienced developers from people that have been in the industry for like 50 years,
Yeah. Yeah.
like Robert Martin, and you see that they are talking about stuff that I was not doing, like testing and modularity, architecture, continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, and so on. A bunch of techniques that I was not doing at work because I didn't have to. My boss was not asking me to write tests or to automate the deployment of the app and things like that. But there were things I had to learn to progress, right? And how I learned about them? By reaching out to more experienced developers
Yeah.
for help, for courses, reading books as well. And at the time, like let's say like 10 years ago, I couldn't find this in the iOS community, at least at the level I was looking for, testing, architecture, modularity. So I had to reach out to developers in other communities like Java, Ruby, Clojure, C Sharp, other communities that were more advanced in those practices. And I had to translate all that knowledge to iOS.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, I understand the pain, doing that.
For sure.
And that's exactly why we started this channel, and these sessions, to share the knowledge with the iOS community from things we learned from other communities. So reach out to other communities, learn from them, and bring it back. And you bring value to your community as well. But nowadays, you can find good advanced content tailored to iOS development. We have a program where we teach all those practices we mentioned here, for example. And most of our students, they are senior developers.
Yeah.
With years of experience. And for many of them, it's like eye-opening, when they see some of those practices. Because you can go by 10 years in your career and not being exposed to a bunch of advanced things just because you don't need them in the job, or it feels like you don't need them. But when you learn them and you start applying it, you can achieve much more results. You can get much more back and deliver much better results to your clients as well. The things you say that you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point. I mean, some of the things that I've done, right, is like you said, reach out to different communities, reach out to people that are more experienced than me, but specifically in the different communities, right? Learning from developers that develop on Spring Boot for Java, I've learned some great things about separation of concerns. I've learned some great things about state-driven UIs and declarative approaches from React developers, which has been great. But at some point, I also find myself reaching a point where it's kind of like an analysis paralysis, or like paralysis of choice. Like there's so much out there that I can learn. And then there's so many things that I know I could like jump into that could, benefit me as far as iOS specific as well. And that I just don't know where to go, because it's like, well, there's all these things here. Which one do I choose? Which one? And obviously that decision is informed by what I am doing in the moment and what the business needs and what my project needs, which is, a fair point. But I also don't want to, take myself down the path where I focus on something too much, and maybe I don't, tend to other areas that I might need to, and maybe it's just a matter of building a better plan around that. But yeah, that's another challenge that I've kind of experienced with that.
Right. Yeah. What I like nowadays, the way I think about software is that, let's say 10 years ago, I would look at all those technologies. I would look like state-driven things. I would look at some new frameworks like React or whatever was coming up at that time. And I would think there were different things, right? And there were all these different things, and I need to choose one or the other. But after like 10 years passed, I look back and I see that they all share a bunch of principles and like very foundational principles of how to build software, that if you learn those principles, then it's much easier to navigate through those different technologies, different practices, different techniques, because like the principles are universal. They are universal. Yeah. So if you focus on the principles, you can apply it to state-driven UIs, for example, to functional programming, object-oriented programming. It doesn't matter that much, the technique, because you understand the principles. And if you understand the principles, you can understand the techniques much, much, much easier, and when to apply them as well. The foundational principles that those techniques use.
Yeah.
Like separation of concerns, you said, If you follow these principles, separation of concerns, you're going to end up with the patterns and the practices at the end.
Yeah. And these things, like these basic foundational things are going to come, from the mentors, like the people that have been there and have done that. They're going to tell you exactly the same thing, And I'm saying that because if you don't focus on those, and then you tend to focus on everything that, on new things that come, like every other month or so, it seems like nowadays, like we have new things all the time, right? I feel personally that there is this element of, like this fear of missing out. Like if I don't do this, if I don't do the other thing, if I don't learn the other framework, or the other tool, I'm missing out somehow. But I totally agree with what Kaio said, that no, like all these tools, all these frameworks, they share some stuff, and it's absolutely you know, a better investment to, in my opinion, of course, to go for the fundamentals first. You know, master those, and then build on top of those. You know, whatever it is that whatever challenge you have, and the tools that you're gonna use, or frameworks, or whatever. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense for sure.
Principles before patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I have some other questions as well, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next one is, when you bring up a new technology, a new concept, a new architecture to your team, and perhaps it improves the process and makes your team more efficient, well, at least your project more efficient, and maintaining the code base. How do you approach socializing that with your team and educating them on concepts or technologies that are key to this new idea, keeping them engaged, keeping them informed, and keeping your team productive overall?
Right. So how to help your team be comfortable with a new idea, a new architecture, a new practice, principle, right?
Sure, yeah.
I believe you need to provide them training. You know, for example, I see many companies that suddenly they decide that they need 90% coverage because a consultant told the CTO that they need 90% coverage. But the team has been working on this code base for 3 years, and they never wrote tests, and they feel everything's fine. But somehow the business now decided, no, you need to have 90% coverage. So we need to start writing tests. But they don't provide training to the team. This happens so often, you know. How will they be able to deliver without the training, you know? It's the same concept. Like if you bring a new idea, a new solution, you need to also provide the training that comes along with it, you know, so they are on the same page as you are.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it won't happen, you know. So if you bring a new idea or a practice or whatever, you need to also provide the training, you know, because if you bring these new ideas because you think it's going to be better somehow. So teach them why it's better and how to get there.
Yes.
But there will be a problem that some people just don't want things to change. Some developers will fight, you know, they will resist, you know, just to stay in the comfort zone, you know, to stick with what they know, to the comfortable. So what I find a way that is easier to do it is to find the developers in your team that are the ones that are eager to learn. You know, there's always people that want things to stay the same. There are always people that want to learn and want to improve. Identify the ones that want to learn. Provide them the training first, because they are eager, they are excited, you know, to learn something new, and they will be the ambassadors of these new practices or this new architecture or whatever you're bringing, and they will help others pick up as well, because you're just one, right? And sometimes it's hard to convince everyone and prepare and train everyone, but start with the ones that are more open, and they will pass the knowledge forward. You know, as a team, you're always sharing knowledge, right? Otherwise you create silos.
Yeah, and people respond better to, like, if they know why they're doing something, right? Like, what's the benefit for them, right? So if one day someone says we need to adopt this practice now, and people, of course, they don't know about this practice and they don't know how they would benefit, you know, they're probably going to react. So yeah, communication there. That's key.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, it is key, right? Because I've been on teams where, you know, in the past, just like where communication probably wasn't stellar, and you know, outside of just you know, socializing new ideas, there were many other problems that went along with that. Yeah. But I also think the point about kind of identifying the individuals who are most passionate about learning is really it kind of gets to a key point that I was trying to learn, I guess. And how do I not become somebody that manages all this on my own? Or maybe I'm not even the technical lead or anything. It's just, how do I multiply this so that I'm not working harder, but I'm working smarter, in order to like achieve that goal. And I think it's a great idea. It's also bring other people along with you, key individuals that can be ambassadors for this idea as well, as long as they have buy-in, in order to get greater buy-in for the rest of the team. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and the others will follow, if you get buy-in of enough people, because if the others don't follow, they're going to feel left behind. So,
yeah,
get the ones that are eager to learn first, and the others will follow. That usually works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm interested in how, if there are any strategies or ideas for striking that balance when training individuals or like educating, because obviously you still have work to do, and this is obviously a part of that work. But yeah, I guess I'm just curious about how you might approach that.
Pairing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you do pairing at work?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great as well, because you can start, showing some new ideas to someone, and you can see if they are open to learn it or not. That's how you can find the people that are more excited about the change as well, pairing. But also you can present talks inside the company. That's fairly common as well when you bring a new idea. What I don't like, and I've seen like happening many times, is suddenly a lead developer come to the office and say, okay, we're going to start using MVVM. I had a revelation. I read a blog post this weekend, and like, no, everything's going to be MVVM now. But they don't have a very clear reason. They don't have a very clear reason why. They just read a blog post that they thought it was amazing, and now they want everyone to follow that idea, And they don't even have a good reason. It's just that because they think, but because it's awesome. I don't think awesome is a good indication that you should change what you're doing, right? But if you bring the idea and you can present it in a way that, as you said, people are going to buy into the idea. So it's up to you to present this idea and show the benefits everyone will get. Because if they don't see the benefits, they will not buy. They'll not buy it. It's about the benefits, how it's going to make their lives easier as well. Not just how it's going to make the product better, but try to frame how it's going to make their lives easier as well. Their lives better.
Yes, provide the incentives, as they say. Exactly.
And be open that maybe your idea is not that good, and they're going to fight back. And the idea is not to enforce an idea, the idea is to improve things, right?
Yes.
So you can bring, like, let's say, we need more scalable solution here because we are bringing 10 new developers to the team, and the way we are managing everything in one project, it's going to be a nightmare with conflicts, right? Boom, that's the goal. We need to find a solution to this scalability problem because we are doubling the size of the team in the next 3 months. How are we going to achieve it? And then I think that we can start modularizing the application, so we can start working in independent modules. And one way of doing it is blah, 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 and you bring a plan. And then they might fight back and say, no, I don't think this is a good idea, because then we're going to have issues with the integration of all those modules. Well, but for that, we can use a tool like Swift Package Manager. And little by little, you're going to come up with a solution. But the first thing you need to do is to define very clearly what the problem is and what the goal is. Like, the team is doubling in the next 3 months. We need to change the architecture of how we are managing this project, because it's not going to scale. Define very clearly what the problem is, and then be open for solutions as well. You bring one solution, but be open that maybe they have a better solution.
Yeah, I think it's a great.
Defining the problem is the key.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I think it's also I like the format of always like forming things and like the problem, goal, solution, impact. To kind of make it clear because I also agree with not being too tied to one particular solution. I don't ever pretend to be somebody that knows it all, and I think it's fair because there might be somebody on your team, even somebody more junior on your team, that has a better idea or that might be seeing something from a different point of view that you might not be. So I think that's a key point for sure. Yeah, and I appreciate that perspective too. It really speaks, I guess, to obviously experience. I haven't really had to do that kind of thing very often, but contextualizing that in that way helps me like see a path forward. So thank you.
Awesome. So define the problem first. Well, then you can bring a solution to that problem. Be open to feedback at this stage, and as soon as you got an agreement, you get the ones that are eager, to tackle this problem. Start with them, and the others will follow. It's pretty much the advice here.
Sounds good. Well, thank you too so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Anything else?
I think that's all for me right now.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye. Take care, Yuri.
Bye. Have a good one.
Hazem, hello.
Hello, Kaio. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Hazem.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine.
All right. First of all, are you an iOS developer?
Yes, I'm an iOS developer for about 3 years for now.
And before that?
No, I just started the iOS.
Started.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. How can we help you?
Okay, I have a couple of questions. First one, I sometimes feel stuck between theory and practical. Sometimes I go to websites, blogs, YouTube videos, iOS development courses, reading books. I started getting info, but I don't know how to apply what I learned in real world project.
Okay.
Okay, what is preventing you? Do you have an example? For example, I'm learning about testing. What would prevent you from start applying it at work?
Because we don't using test in work. That's an example. But in my current company, we writing test. But before that, I learned about unit test. I read about it, but I don't apply it. Why? I don't have time to apply it in real world project. So how I can go to my team lead and say to him, hey, we need to apply this. How I can be confident about it.
Wow, if you cannot practice at work, you're going to have to practice on-site projects, right?
Okay.
Because ideally, the lead developer should come and say, hey, we need to start writing tests and provide you the training and, and the guidance. I think it's very difficult to do the opposite. You going there and asking the lead developer to write tests, because if you're not writing tests, it's probably because the lead developer doesn't like writing tests.
Yes. So trying to convincing him as well, or her, that's probably,
but it can happen, You say, hey, I've been learning about tests on the side, and I think the project would benefit. What is your opinion on testing? And they might say, no, we don't need testing. Like I've seen many developers say that. But so there are different things that can prevent you from applying what you learn. One of them is the lead developer or the team not wanting that practice in there. What is something else that is preventing you from applying what you learn?
Sometimes I don't know if I have enough information about what I learned. Maybe I read about unit test, but did I really know what is unit test? How I know that I get enough info to start unit testing? Right. For example,
let's say if you watch a bunch of videos of people swimming, when do you know if you can swim?
Yes.
It's the same idea,
Exactly the same. Yes.
Exactly the same. Watching videos is not enough. It's the first step. We usually say the 3 ways of learning. Conceptually, when you're learning the concepts, like watching a video, you'll being exposed to concepts and also examples, right? But then comes practice. You need these 3 ways here. You need to repeat this cycle. Go back to the concepts, see examples, practice, and so on. Otherwise, like the swimming example, you may see a bunch of people swimming, you may see examples, but until you go there and you do it, you're never going to know if you can do it or not.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, so, it can be scary as well, especially like when you start out unit testing, like this is scary,
Yes, yeah.
Your instinct is not to, okay, I'm gonna practice now, I'm gonna spend some time and like, no, it's you need to force it somehow, Okay. You need to say, yeah, okay, like I understand this is gonna be hard. I don't know what I'm doing, so gradually, step by step.
Okay, great. So I have another question. One more question. Sometimes I feel stuck when I try to start a new project, and I want to choose what architecture I will use. Then I get I don't know if I decided to use MVVM. Is that the right one? No, I will go with MVP. Is that the right one? So what is the factor I must take in consideration while I decided what architecture I will use in my project?
Okay, so MVC, MVVM, and MVP, they are different patterns, right? But they all work well. And in the huge majority of apps, it doesn't matter that much which one you choose. The actual pattern doesn't matter that much. If you're applying the pattern well, applying the pattern correctly, they all lead to similar results. It's often based on personal preference from the people in the team, from the skills in the team, what people are more used to or more familiar with, usually. But when you actually learn those patterns, you see that they are not that different and they achieve similar results. So I wouldn't start choosing the pattern, because it doesn't matter that much. We don't even consider MVC, MVVM, and MVP architectures.
Yeah, I think that's
they are UI design patterns for the UI to organize the UI.
Exactly. That's a big difference conceptually here. That, like, I believe you said, what architecture should I use, right?
Yes, I said that.
Meaning MVC, MVVM, or MVP, right? Yeah. But the truth is, like, they are more of they're design patterns for structuring your UI. There are so many more things in a code base other than the UI, that these patterns just cannot accommodate for the rest of the responsibilities and modules, components, and so on. So yeah, these are like just UI design patterns, right?
Yeah, architectural design patterns, but still patterns.
Okay, so if I understand right, there is no rule to tell you what the right pattern you should follow. Is that right?
Yeah, there's no rule. Yeah. They all work well. And sometimes they're using a framework that will kind of push you in the direction of a pattern than the other. Like UIKit historically was based on MVC. Of course, you can apply MVVM or MVP by changing a little bit how the components are structured in the code base, but the pattern will be pushing you more to the MVC side, right? And SwiftUI now is pushing you more to the MVVM side, for example, right? So depending on the framework you're using, you're also going to have some incentives to use one or the other. But there's also no limitation. You can still do MVC if you want with SwiftUI. It might be a bit more cumbersome, or you can use MVP as well, And we have a bunch of videos here on YouTube about architecture and even analyzing MVC, MVVM, and MVP and comparing it to design patterns better than architecture. And very good explanations there. I highly recommend you watch.
Sure.
You can search for Essential Developer Analytics. there is a video, Analytics Architecture Overview, where we start analyzing architecture and so on. You can also search for Essential Developer MVC, MVVM, MVP, and we have a video with talking about these 3 patterns. You see that they are not very different, but they only address the UI side of the application. If you try to do more things with those patterns, you're going to end up with massive view controllers or massive view models or massive presenters, right?
Exactly. Because everything is going to be coupled, right?
Okay.
You like, there's no other way. You're going to have to couple, for example, the networking or the database with the UI. So, yeah.
So in short, all those patterns work very nicely for the UI side. If you try to do more than UI with them, you end up with problems.
Okay. I get it.
Makes sense?
Thank you. Yes, makes sense. Sure.
And don't forget to check the videos I just told you about.
Sure, I will.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Caio. Thank you, Mike.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.